September 20th, 2012, hearing of the Radnor Township Zoning Hearing Board. The first matter is appeal number 2877, applicants Radnor Fire Company and Metro PCS, Pennsylvania, LLC. Property located at 121 South Wayne Avenue in Zone WBOD. Applicant seeks the following relief. 1, the grant of a use variance from Section 280-53.7 of the Zoning Code to allow for the continued use of emergency services transmissions from a newly constructed tower, as well as the addition of the wireless telecommunications facility to be housed at the site on the proposed replacement tower. 2, dimensional variances from Section 280-164B of the Zoning Code to allow for the existing lattice tower to be replaced by the proposed monopole. Section 280-164B has set the minimum setback shall be maintained from all property lines at a distance equal to 75% of the structure's height, or 89.25, measuring to the top of the proposed whip antenna feet from all property lines. The proposed replacement monopole will be 12 feet from the southernmost property line and 22 feet from the eastern property line. 3, the applicants also apply for such other interpretations, waivers, and/or variances as may ultimately be required. In connection with this matter, we have a letter from Nicholas Kuche, Jr., Esquire, to Kevin Kachansky, dated July 6, 2012. Dear Mr. Kachansky, please note that the applicants request a continuance from the July.
No, it's the old one.
This is the old one. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Kuche, you're before us this evening.
I am. Good evening.
What say you, sir?
We are requesting a continuance until the November Zoning Hearing Board hearing date. The reason for the 2-month continuance is twofold. Instead of wasting the board's time with monthly continuances, we feel as though our due diligence period will be completed by November. We are doing what has been asked of us by the township and what is required of us in your code in terms of alternate site viability. Therefore, we are requesting a 2-month continuance to complete that.
And you would waive the requirements of starting hearings until the November hearing, which I believe is the 17th, is it not? Or is it the 16th? The regularly scheduled November hearing.
Yes, that's correct, Mr.
And you would
Wright.
also extend the 45 days from the conclusion of those hearings.
Yes, we would.
Do any of the members of the board have any questions or comments regarding the requested extension?
You realize, Nick, if we ever wind up going through and hearing this case, we're going to have to study the transcript from square one all over again, because who can remember anything?
So will I, Mr. Cutler. So will I.
Anybody
I have no
else?
objection. I'm in favor of it.
Okay, it's granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too. The next matter is appeal number 2881. The applicant Goshen Holding Company, LP, property located at 800 Goshen Road, Lot 9, and zoned R1. Applicant seeks to appeal the Township Zoning Officer's zoning determination denial dated April 5, 2012, received by the applicant on April 9, 2012, continued from July 2012 meeting. For members of the audience, if you'll recall, the issue before us, or the issue we asked the applicant and the township to go back with, was whether or not the board had jurisdiction over this matter. We had briefs submitted by both sides. Counsel, do you guys want to have a brief argument, or do you just want to hear what we have to say?
Unless you would like more argument, I guess just like to hear what you have to say.
Okay, very good. Noah, did you want to take this one? John,
Yeah,
did you want to have any argument at all?
No, I mean, we both briefed it thoroughly, and I think the issues are
Yeah, I
pretty
agree.
straightforward. So
Okay. I know, I, being a lawyer, I know that we all usually like to talk, but wanted to make that opportunity available to you both. John, Noah, did you want to take this for the board?
Yeah, I guess I should explain to the lay people here that before a judicial or quasi-judicial body, which is what we are, can decide a case, we have to have jurisdiction over the subject matter, jurisdiction over the parties, and it has to be brought before the board in the right manner. There's a way issues come before the board. In this particular case, there are a couple of different ways to view this. I personally view this entire letter that was issued by the zoning officer as a denial of a zoning permit. It says this is denial of a zoning permit, a grading permit. That's really the crux of the issue. Denial of a grading permit for the following reasons, and then lists 3 enumerated reasons, and that's the entire letter except for, if you have any questions, call me kind of thing. Although some of the reasons are grounded in, or purportedly grounded in provisions of the zoning code, the letter is, in fact, the denial of a grading permit, nothing more, nothing less. So I think the issues that are in dispute, both on the township side, on the applicant, or the appellant side in this case, and the neighbors, will all still be subject to being raised and discussed through proper procedures. Where our hands, I think, are tied is because this was all a grading permit denial, and the granting or denial of a grading permit is exclusively within the jurisdiction of the township engineer, and he never granted nor denied it. I think that's not in dispute. I feel that the zoning officer acted beyond the scope of his authority in making this denial. That doesn't mean, we're not saying that he acted beyond the scope of his authority to the extent that he has made determinations of provisions of the zoning code. And we're not saying that he's not still free to act as the zoning officer and make determinations under the zoning code within the confines of his jurisdiction and his portfolio. And we are not saying whether or not the present township engineer could act and grant or deny this permit, this grading permit. But I feel, and I believe that we'll see when we have a vote, I believe most of us will feel that there was a narrow scope of authority here, and it's solely on the part of the township engineer. And by the way, the appeal from the determination of the township engineer under the grading permit statute goes to the Board of Commissioners and not to this body. So should things happen that winds up, that there winds up being a denial or a granting of this permit by the township engineer, and should it go on appeal to that body, I'm not saying that they could or couldn't refer back the zoning parts of it to this board, essentially remand it to us if there are zoning issues they feel need to be determined or reviewed, whether made by the zoning officer first or not. So that's my understanding of it. Now, John, you said that I guess there's another way of looking at this.
Well, my thought, and this is a very tough technical matter, and I think a lot of very careful thought has been put into it by council and by the members of this board. One way to look at this is because it purports to be a grant of a permit under a grading ordinance and is not issued by the person that ordinance says is supposed to authorize the permit, the whole thing is void and is a nullity. The other way is to say that while the permit denial was wrong, there are zoning determinations in that letter. I think the important thing, regardless of how the board votes, is that it's very likely that these issues will be addressed. And my personal view is that if the letter is void, it's void. Doesn't mean anything. Might just as well never have been written, and nothing would prevent going forward proper issues being brought before this board in a proper manner. I also would say that the jurisdiction of the zoning board and of the zoning officer are prescribed by statute, the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code, and there may be procedural correct ways to get that there, but the scope of the jurisdiction comes from state statute, and to the extent that there is any conflict perceived or real between the zoning code and the state statute would control. So I saw a lot of support personally for the proposition that maybe the zoning board determinations, the zoning ordinance determinations, and possibly the one on the subdivision plan, depending on what the parties actually said. I'm not sure I fully understand what's going to be raised on that, and we're not there tonight. We're only at threshold jurisdiction, and again, it's to be emphasized that the fact that the matter is before the board now and the board determines that the threshold jurisdiction is not met given the way this came to us does not mean it couldn't come to us again through other means. And the jurisdiction of the board is what it is. So that's, Noah, is that a fair statement of what we were talking about?
I think so. I think it's important that people understand what this decision is and what it is not. And we want to make that very clear. And we have given a lot of thought to all the possible ways of interpreting the history of this case and the applicable law to it. So I guess we should take a vote.
I guess, do you have a proposed ruling on
Yeah,
that?
I would move that the board decide that the action of the zoning officer in denying the grading permit was beyond his scope of authority under the ordinances of Radnor Township, and that therefore we are determining that the letter of denial is void and of no effect whatsoever in any way on anybody, with the expressed understanding that the issues remain open and unresolved, and hopefully they will be resolved, and are still subject to following proper procedure to bring them to a head, whoever wants to move to do so in the right way. So there's a mouthful, but that's what I move.
Okay. Brad, do you have any comment?
No, I do not.
Do you agree?
I agree.
Okay. What's your vote, Cora?
Since I was absent in the July meeting, I recuse myself from voting on this matter.
Okay. And I agree with Mr. Cutler as well, so that's the determination. Thank you. And we are adjourned, ladies and gentlemen.
Before we adjourn, I just want to make an announcement that John Randolph was a former member of this board for a number of years, and he passed away recently after a battle with liver cancer. And his funeral is Monday at the Church of the Good Samaritan in Paoli. Should anybody here or at home be interested in attending, he was a fine man and gave a lot of years of service to this community. Thanks.
Thank you.
I did work with him in the zoning board.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're adjourned.